Good afternoon and welcome. I'm Michael Graham, the pastor of the Guilford Community Church, and I had a little biking mishap, so I'm hobbling around today, but I'm just really honored to be here to celebrate a wonderful, authentic person's life, Paul Visco. Grief never ends, but it changes. It's a passage, not a place to stay. Grief is not a sign of weakness nor a lack of faith. It is the price of love. And every one of you has paid love's great price. Now, sometimes when we gather to this place, we do overwhelmed with sadness. For sometimes death takes us by surprise. We're not ready, or we die too young. Today is a little different. Certainly, sadness has visited everyone here. Sorrow has been your companion. But all of us know that Paul has been struggling for some time. And while it hurts, we do take some comfort in knowing his struggles are over, that he's been set free. So we gather this afternoon to do a few things. Certainly to give expression to our loss, but more than that, we come to celebrate all that was wonderful and remarkable about Paul Visco, all the love you shared. And when a good person dies like Paul, family and friends gather for many different reasons. In our loss, we seek one another's company. Just to be surrounded by friends and family eases a little bit of the pain and takes some of the loneliness away. And it draws our hearts together in the blessed healing that family and friends provide to each other. So let us do all things appropriate for a day like this. And when evening comes, let us do what we should do every night. Give thanks for Paul Visco, a devoted husband, a loving father, an awesome grandfather, and a dear friend to so many. Amen.
This song brings us back to our dating days, too. It's very special. Sunshine on my shoulders. Sunshine on my shoulders makes me happy. Sunshine in my eyes can make me cry. Sunshine on the water looks so sunshine almost always makes me high. If I had a day that I could give you, I'd give to you a day just like today. And if I had a song that I could sing for you, I'd sing a song to make you feel this way. Sunshine on my shoulders makes me happy. Sunshine in my eyes can make me cry. Sunshine on the water looks so lovely. Sunshine almost always makes me high. If I had a tale that I could tell you, I'd tell a tale sure to make you smile. if I had a wish that I could wish for you, I'd make a wish for sunshine all the while. Sunshine on my shoulders makes me happy. Sunshine in my eyes can make me cry. Sunshine on the water looks so lovely. Sunshine almost always makes me high. Sunshine almost all the time makes me
Thank you, Cindy and Carolyn. Please join me in a moment of prayer. How grateful we are for the gift of life. From the moment of our birth to the moment of our last breath, we live amidst the wonder and beauty of all life. We marvel at the gift of what it means to be fully human, fully alive like Paul was. Today we are particularly thankful for the gift of Paul Visco's life. His life was a gift to us and many others in our world. Then we give thanks for the gift of love, for the wonder of human relationships, the ability to know another, to be known, to accept another and be accepted, to live in the depth of meaning together. How grateful we are for the love we experience from Paul and the love and friendship we could offer him in return. It is a relationship which makes our grieving even deeper. Grant that each of us may hold on to shining moments of memory, that we may carry these in our hearts as a candle, a companion in our darkness. And we do believe, even in times of great sadness, there is room for laughter. May we remember that the joy that comes from loving and friendship remains with us. For it is through each of us that Paul's memory stays alive, that what he believed in, what he stood for, will be carried forth. And so we close our eyes and we remember his smile, his soft voice, his hard work, his love, his determined spirit, and his way of living. And then we ask that you might enfold all who love Paul in your love. May our presence offer them peace and comfort. Ever present God, receive our prayers. Amen. And then in moments like this, people have turned to the scriptures, and a great source of comfort and hope comes from the familiar words of the 23rd Psalm. It's printed in your bulletin. Please join me as we read it together. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. He leadeth me in the paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou anointest my head with oil, my cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. Amen.
From the day we arrive on this planet and blinking step into the sun, there's more to see than can ever be seen. more to find than can ever be found. But the sun rolling high through the sapphire sky keeps great and small on the endless round. It's a circle of life, and it moves us all through despair and tomb, through faith and love, till we find our place on those paths unwinding in the circle of life. Some of us fall by the wayside, and some of us soar to the stars, and some of us sail through our troubles, and some learn to live with the scars. There's far too much to take in here, more to find than can ever be found. But the sun rolling high through the sapphire sky keeps great and small as we move along. It's a circle of life. It's a wheel of fortune. It's a leap of faith. It's a band of hope till we find our place on that path unwinding. It's a circle, the circle of life.
Thank you, Cindy and Carolyn. I know there are a few others who will be sharing, people who knew Paul a lot better than I did. So I won't say a lot, but there are a few things I feel compelled to say. I'm not sure what thought crosses your mind when you first think of Paul Visco, what images and memories and words. But for me, the very first word is gentleman. Paul was a world-class gentleman in a world filled with a lot of not-so-good people. His life exuded goodness. To be in his presence was like drinking a cold beverage on a hot day like this. There was something refreshing about him. He was never self-absorbed or self-focused, but always interested in what was going on in your life. A gentle man with a gentle soul, but fiercely competitive, but never in an obnoxious way. Then when I think of Paul, I think of his marvelous, wonderful, loving family. He was always ready to share stories about his family, about the adventures you had together. And that's the best way to live, loving the people life has entrusted to your care. Recognizing, like he did, what is and what isn't important. And family and friends should always be on top of all of our lists. Then I know he was the kind of grandpa, and I love the kind of grandpa he was, sweet and kind, always eager to do whatever was on the heart of his grandkids. He delighted in teaching you something new and was thrilled to watch you grow. Paul stayed active and engaged in life as fully as life allowed it. When we talked about his illness, he never complained. but remained ever hopeful. I loved talking to him about that awesome trip to the Masters, how lucky he was to have done that. And for those of you who had that pleasure of sharing that memory with him, I'll never, ever watch the Masters without thinking of him. Then many, many years ago, when I visited Paul in the hospital, I can't even remember why he was there. But it was then for the first time we had a real conversation about the world and politics. And I knew that Paul saw the world like I did. And that he had a huge heart, a special place for those for whom life was a struggle. I would number Paul Visco among the pure in heart. And finally, I'm guessing that every single person knows what a privilege and joy it was to call Paul your friend. But I'm pretty darn sure that if he were here right now, he'd want to look each of you in the eyes, maybe hold your hand, and say, I was the lucky one. So now I just invite you to close your eyes. Let memories and thoughts come to mind. But don't simply build a shrine to his memory in your heart. Do what he did. Live the good life. Love those entrusted to your care so that your life, like his, might be worthy of not only remembrance, but of celebration, great celebration for years to come. Amen. And now I'd like to invite Paul's brother-in-law, Lou Rosenthal, to share some thoughts with us.
Good afternoon. I'm Lou Rosenthal, Paul's brother-in-law. I've known Paul for at least 45 years. He was a wonderful man. Thank you all for coming. I remember decades ago when we ourselves were young men, recently married, starting our careers, starting our families. Mary and I went down to Chelmsford, Mass. To visit, and after indulging in overeating in what would be one of many innumerable family get-togethers, Paul and I adjourned to the backyard with our toddlers in tow, a wiffle ball in one hand, a plastic bat in the other, trying to instill the fundamentals of baseball in our young children. We were in charge then, but it was very transient. In a flash, they grew up and became bigger and stronger than either one of us. And Paul was so justly proud of the accomplishments of his sons, Steve and Jeff. Years later, they moved to New Jersey. And the trip down there was very long and equally as hot as it is today. And even though the price of gas was much cheaper back then, Mary and I were so grateful for their return to New England. They settled in Laconia on Paugus Bay section of Winnipesaukee, and we were treated to many very enjoyable boat rides, ably skippered by Captain Paul, navigating the often choppy waters of the Broads, and even Paugus Bay itself on occasion. By contrast, we kayaked in the calm serenity of South Branch Lake in Savoy's Plantation, Maine, 50 miles north of Bangor, in our aging family camp, now almost 100 years old. And as you might imagine, something was always breaking down, falling apart, but Paul was there to the rescue, fixing what needed to be fixed, repairing what needed to be repaired, in the tradition of our common beloved father-in-law, Kermit Squires. In addition to being such a talented handyman, he was a skilled woodworker. He would take a block of wood, usually cedar with its aroma, and fashion the most gorgeous three-dimensional Christmas ornament you could imagine. I don't know how he did it, but the end result is beautiful. And we hang ours on our tree every year, and will continue to do so in memory of his talents, of this fine man. I have to say a word about his culinary skills as well. Paul made the most enjoyable cookie you could ever imagine. Ginger molasses cookies. Try some when you get a chance later today. Trust me, I've tried thousands of cookies. This is the best. True confession, at family gatherings, I would scarf away as many of these cookies as I possibly could, promptly, without my pockets bulging. I'd stash them in our freezer so I could parcel them out and enjoy them sporadically until the next family gathering, and the cycle repeated itself. Years later, Paul and I took in several afternoon matinees in Manchester of recycled Broadway musicals, followed by early evening meals. And I must say, I truly enjoyed his fellowship. In this polarized country of ours, Paul and I did share similar political views, and I honestly feel that we consoled, comforted one another as we, quote, preached to the choir about affairs of the day that we encountered and discussed. But as time went by, Paul could eat less and less, and I remember what was to be our final telephone conversation. He allowed that just maybe he might be able to keep down a frozen margarita, which I eagerly offered to pay for, but alas, it was not to be, as this horrible disease of his took its inevitable toll. It was painful to witness his decline, but I'm grateful. I'm first off grateful for Paul himself for having had him for 79 years. And I'm not only grateful, I'm in awe of Pat, who stood by and helped him for as long as she possibly could, and for Steve and Jeff, who also came up and helped both their parents for as long as they could. We should all be so lucky to have such a steadfast spouse and such devoted children. And finally, I'm very grateful for the staff at St. Francis. When his needs were so great and his quality of life so poor, they not only cared for Paul, they comforted Pat. We should all keep in mind the caregivers in our midst. What they do is difficult and challenging. And by caregivers, I mean family, professional caregivers. They really deserve the care and recognition that they so justly, for the work that they do day in and day out. Particularly for someone like Paul, where there was no real meaningful hope for significant improvement. What can we learn from the life of Paul Visco, this fine man? Number one, every day, do the most you can do with whatever you got for as long as you can. That was Paul's mantra. I had the utmost respect for him. He pushed himself and tried to be as active and functional as he possibly could be for as long as he was capable. And more importantly, be true to your partner and your family, as was Paul, a devoted husband, father, and grandfather. He loved his family, and they loved him back. Paul realized that the key to happiness and inner peace is to truly love someone and know that you yourself are loved in return. Paul was a wonderful, decent human being who was dealt a bad hand, but he adjusted and adapted with grace, dignity, determination, and courage. He handled it better than many, I dare say better than I myself had I been in his shoes. We shared our adult life together. I was enriched by his presence. Let's raise a frozen margarita in celebration of a life well lived. Thank you.
Thank you all for coming. Very shortly, we'll be seeing a slideshow, and that slideshow will tell you a story of a boy that became a man, fell in love, got married, became a father and a grandfather. It'd be nice to remember him when he was younger and athletic. When he was in high school, he played a little football. He was captain of his golf team. On weekends, he caddied 2 bags at the same time. His tennis serve always had a spin on it. One time, he was sailing his 470 racing boat with his friend Brad. Brad was out on the trapeze acting as a ballast when he lost his grip and slipped, or my father intentionally dunked him. He was a proud Vietnam vet, disliked war, and rarely talked about his time overseas. He took twice the frequency of missions to get out in half the time. Shortly after, he met his wife on the slopes of Killington Mountain. They got married and had 2 sons. As the youngest, once I took the first steps, my first steps, it was time for his kids to learn how to ski. Downhill skiing was one of his great passions. He loved to ski in the powder out west. He was never out of control, and his skis were never more than an inch apart. Watching him ski was like watching ballet. He snowmobiled during the winters in Savoy with his father-in-law. They brought along chainsaws and axes to clear fallen trees, blocking the trail. At night, they would keep warm by the stove in the red camp and eat meals out of cans. Together, they built the extension on the Chelmsford house, a family room and a 2-car garage. I remember as a kid falling asleep to him reading me books at night. Years later, my mother would tell me she would have to come in and wake him up because he would always fall asleep beside me. I remember one weekend he was returning from a trip to the local hardware store. I challenged him to a foot race around the shrubs in the front yard. It was the day I discovered running barefoot in the grass made you fast as lightning. Before I finished my first stride, he was already 2 in front of me. I can still hear the loose change rattling around in his pocket. I can still see his Cheshire cat grin. I remember him in his work suit dropping me off early for a middle school band concert. My Dockers were not quite formal enough, so he lent me his dress shoes. They were so big on my feet, they felt like clown shoes. I remember once our family was playing the card game Hearts. A wry smile broke across his face when he knew that we knew that he was shooting the moon. But more importantly, there was nothing we could do to stop him. He was a member of a country club everywhere he lived. Woodland in Massachusetts, Mattawang in New Jersey, Laconia in New Hampshire. He loved golf. He was known as Good Shot Paul because every shot his friends would say, "Good shot, Paul." He didn't hit the longest ball, but he would be waiting for you on the green. He had a renowned short game. Unfortunately, that's not hereditary. He had one hole-in-one. Ironically, he shanked his tee shot. It ricocheted off a log onto the green and rolled in. If you played around with him, you would witness him sink a 60-foot putt. When he played without a scorecard, it didn't matter. He remembered every shot on every hole. He played around at the Old Course in Scotland and visited the private Royal and Ancients Clubhouse. He traveled with his wife to Germany, Austria, Liechtenstein, and Switzerland. They took cruises to Alaska and saw a glacier, to Central America and saw the Panama Canal. He and I drove across the country and saw the Grand Canyon. He had a great sense of direction. If he drove anywhere just once, he had the route in his head. That was an important skill before everyone had a GPS in their pocket. He coached his son's Little League baseball teams. He hiked up and skied down Tuckerman's Ravine. He drove on the Autobahn. His final years were difficult for him and those that loved him. As more physical activities were taken away, he focused on what he could do. Leisurely kayaking in Savoys, making spaghetti from scratch, crafting detailed wooden Christmas tree ornaments, baking ginger snaps and pizzelles for his grandsons, Tommy and Brandon. What we believe happens to us when we die is a matter of faith. But I do know the ones that love us will miss us.
Paul was a very good friend of mine. He was a man that I wanted as a friend. We have lots of history together. We first met in high school in Lexington, Mass. He was 1 year ahead of me, not because I stayed back, Pat, but he was older. He was in my sister's class and knew her from there. I was told that they dated. He also bowled with my older brother, and he and my brother never asked me to bowl because in that sport, I was an underperformer. We became close friends many years later after Pat and Paul built a house in Laconia, and Mary, my wife, and I were building a house on the lake at the same time. This was in the early 80s. Pat and I have a lot of history also. I first met Pat at the University of Maine. She was finishing up her undergraduate degree, and I was there having just returned from Vietnam in the MBA program. I remember her as being very friendly when our paths would cross in the common room, bright and pretty, as she is now. She later told me that she remembers me as a geek. Pat and my wife Mary were both registered dietitians in Mass General Hospital in Boston. The registered dietitians of just about every hospital knew one another and were friends. Also had good parties. Mary invited the Viscos to our wedding, and it's a very good thing that pictures were taken, as for years Paul never remembered that he was there until Mary showed him his picture. History has shown that I never made an impression on him. So I knew Pat long before Paul did. And I knew Paul long before he met Pat. Paul was very smart and was very capable of being very good at many things. He had lots of patience and could teach you at your level. When we played golf together, he would help you get better if you wanted. I wish Michael had a chance to play more with Paul and gotten good at golf, so he might not have taken up bike riding. Paul looked forward to the weekly services here at his church. He said that he would be thinking about Michael's sermon all week long. Paul and I were in Vietnam, veterans. He was an expert at defusing bombs that had not blown up in the fields in the southern part of the country. I was up in the Central Highlands leading convoys getting shot at. He came home with serious medical conditions that he managed quietly through his whole life. I came home with some other things, not as major, and I whined. In Masons, there is a principle of brotherly love and affection. This is how I felt about Paul and about how I will remember him.
Thank you, Warren and Jeff and Lou. Your thoughts and memories were beautiful.
know a dream is like a river, ever changing as it flows, and the dreamer's just a vessel that must follow where it goes, trying to learn from what's behind you, and never knowing what's in store makes each day a constant battle just to stay between the shore. And I will sail my vessel till the river runs dry, like a bird upon the wind. These waters are my sky, I'll never reach my destination if I never try. So I will sail my vessel till the river runs dry. Too many times we stand aside and let the water slip away, till what we put off till tomorrow has now become today. So don't you sit upon the shoreline and say you're satisfied. Choose to chance the rapids and dare to dance the tide. Yes, I will sail my vessel till the river runs dry, like a bird upon the wind. These waters are my sky, I'll never reach my destination if I never try. So I will sail my vessel till the river runs dry. There's bound to be rough waters, and I know I'll take some falls, but with a good Lord as my captain, I can make it through them all. sky, I'll never reach my destination if I never try. So I will sail my vessel till the river runs dry. Yes, I will sail my vessel till the river runs dry. Till the river runs dry.
I see trees of green, red roses too. I see them bloom for me and for you, and I think to myself, what a wonderful world. I see skies of blue and clouds of white, the bright blessed day and the dark sacred night, and I think to myself, what a wonderful world. The colors of the rainbow, so pretty in the sky, is also on the faces of people passing by. I see friends shaking hands, saying, how do you do? They're really saying, I love you. I see babies cry, I watch them grow. They'll learn much more than I'll ever know, and I think to myself, what a wonderful world. Yes, I think to myself, what a wonderful world. Oh, yes.
On behalf of Pat and her family, I thank you not only for your presence here today, but for all the love and support you've offered her family and will continue to do so. We're going to process up to the Memorial Garden. The family will go first, and you're invited to follow them, and then following the committal service, you're invited back to our fellowship hall for refreshments and to hear great stories about Paul, to share great stories. I think Paul would appreciate this benediction. If I should go before the rest of you, break not a flower, nor inscribe a stone, nor when I'm gone speak in a Sunday voice, but be the usual selves I've known and loved. Weep if you must, parting is hell, but life goes on, so sing and dance as well. Amen.